Hello and welcome to a processing tutorial. We're going to edit up an image of the Lion Nebula. I captured this using an OIII camera from my city centre back garden, and I've got three integrated images that we're going to combine into one. So first of all, we've got a 30-minute integration here, which is RGB data, so no filter at all on this, and this is simply so that we can have some accurate star colours in the final image. And this next one here is OIII Ultimate data, 14 hours of that. The Ultimate is a dual band filter. It's hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3. So the red that we can see is the hydrogen alpha and the greeny blue is oxygen 3. And then finally I used a new ASCAR E2 filter. This is 10 hours of data. The E2 is a sulfur to oxygen 3 filter. So the red that we can see is the sulfur and the greeny blue is the oxygen 3. And what we're going to do is combine all of these, and then we'll have an SHO image taken using an OIII camera. First thing I always like to do is create clones of the source images so that if we mess anything up we can go back to the beginning. Clone, clone, whoop, clone. And next, my data is actually oversampled, so I'm going to use integer resample to fix that. RGB 30 minutes first. So I'm going to downsample, which is the equivalent of bin times 2. If you're not sure whether you should be binning your data or not, then I've got an article on urban astrophotography about that. Downsample the Ultimate and downsample the E2. Alright, looking good. Next, we need to make sure that these three images are all aligned. So to do that, I'm going to bring up star alignment here, and our reference view, the one that the others will be aligned to, let's have that as the best one, which is probably the Ultimate, highest quality data there. So Ultimate 14 hours. There we go. That's the reference, and the target images are the other two, so the RGB and the E2. So let's add the views, RGB 30 minutes and E2 10 hours. There we go, and click. And those should... Oh, do I have to click the circle? I always get those confused. Right, so let's have a look. So these ones should be aligned. Let's close that. So this is the E2, which replaces this one. So let's minimize that one, put that out of the way. And the RGB. Close that, put that out of the way. Okay, next it's good to do a dynamic crop to make sure they're all sorted as well. This is the kind of the final stage of aligning everything. So I'm going to crop in just a smidge. And then apply that crop by dragging and dropping the triangle onto that image first, and then this image, and then the tick to apply it to that one. And now these three images should all be perfectly aligned. But to test that, we can create windows that are the same dimensions. And I'm going to click and drag this over to make the images the same size. And if you press hold down Control and press page down, it flips between the two. We can see those are lined up perfectly. That's good. And just do the same with our stars. Okay, looking good. Right, let's put the RGB and the Ultimate and the E2. Next stage is to run a little script called Image Solver. And I'm going to run this on each of the three images, and this will give PixInsight some useful information that's going to be used later on. Alright, that's the RGB done. Next, I'm going to click to highlight the Ultimate and do exactly the same thing. Okay. And then finally for the E2. Right, that's all three done. The next stage is our gradient removal. This is going to even out the background and take out light pollution gradients, which can be quite severe from a city. The easiest way to do that is a free SETI Astro plugin called Automatic DBE. I leave all of these as the defaults and just click execute. And we get two images out of that. The first one will look a bit weird. That's the background gradient that it's removed. And then this is the one that we really want. That is the image that has been corrected. So minimize that, put that out of the way. And then we're going to repeat that process with the other two images. So first of all, the ultimate, SETI Astro Automatic DBE, and let's execute that. Good. And then finally the E2. And this should be looking good. The next step is to run Blur Exterminator, which is a deconvolution tool, which is going to sharpen the images up a little bit. I like to do this by doing a little step first, which I forgot where it is. Yes, render PSF image. This might be a free download. I'm not sure if this is the default one, but I'm going to evaluate the RGB image, and this is going to give a PSF figure, point spread function, and that's a number which is basically showing how blurry the stars are, and that's information that we're going to input into Blur Exterminator rather than letting Blur Exterminator work it out or automatically, which I find doesn't work quite as well as this method. Now what we want is to look for the two full width half maximum values, the X and the Y, 1.69, 1.53. We want to work out what's between those two numbers, so that's 1.63, and we just remember that because then we're going to load up Blur Exterminator. Not doing automatic, we're putting in what we worked out, 1.63, leave everything else on the defaults and then run that. There we go. Hard to tell much difference, especially when you're zoomed out, but it has sharpened it up a little bit. Next we're going to do the same thing for our ultimate data, so we go to render PSF image and then evaluate. Same as before, we're looking at the two full width half maximum numbers, and in between the two would be 1.39, wouldn't it? So 1.39, and we run that. And then finally that whole process again, but this time for the E2 data. And between those two, 1.3. So we put in 1.3 here and then run that on the E2. There we go, looking good. Let's make some clones of these. So 10-hour E2, and the last thing that we did was Blur X. Make a clone. And rename this. Make a clone. And then over here, the RGB, Blur X, and make a clone. Right, we're making good progress. The next step is color calibration. So to do that, we're going to use SPCC, a spectrophotometric color calibration function here, which is fairly simple to use. So the first one here, the RGB data, is RGB, it's broadband, so we don't want to click narrowband filters mode. We need to select a little bit of our background, and the easiest way to do that is to use another SETI Astro script called find background and click search. And once that's complete, there'll be a little tab here and a background part of the image that's been found. And the reason we want that is because when we're running SPCC, we want to include background neutralization. So we click on region of interest from preview, because we've got a preview here, and the preview is RGB Blur X background. And then we run that. And then we get a neat little graph out of it, and our colours should be more or less sorted. Now I'm going to left click on the background tab there and delete that because we don't need that anymore. And now we're going to run the same process here for the Alt Blur X. So let's find the background. There it is. Now SBCC isn't really optimal for use with these dual band filters, but I find it works well enough. So same process, but this time we've clicked narrowband filters mode. The preview is Alt Blur X background, which is the one up there. Easy to find, it's the only one because we were efficient and we deleted the RGB one once we were finished with it. Right, there we go. And then same, delete that one. And then same process with the E2 data. Let's find the background. Select it there, and off we go. Okie dokie. Right, colours more or less sorted. The next thing we're going to do, let me think. Right, let's take care of our stars. So I'm just going to minimise the Blur X, the Alt and the E2 data there. And what we're going to do is stretch this the stars data from linear to non-linear. So again, easiest way. Thank you, SETI Astro. You make this very easy. I'm going to go to statistical stretch, and we've got the correct one there lined up. Let's give a bit of a curves boost. These are really good because you see what results you're going to get. I want the background to be a little bit darker, but okay. Pretty good. Let's click OK, execute on that, and now we have our stretched view here. Now we only want the stars from this. We don't care about the faint nebulosity. So the best way to extract the stars is to make a clone of that, and I like to use StarNet 2. We're going to remove the stars first of all from this cloned image. It's not linear data, we've stretched it, so we uncheck that. And now we run that, and it should remove all the stars. You might be thinking, well, that's no good because what we want is just a stars only image. That's removed all the stars. But we need that starless image because we're going to go to Utilities and Screen Stars, which I think is another free plugin. I don't think it's a default one. We want star removal, and our star review is RGB Blur X, and we need a starless view for this to function, which is RGB Blur X clone 1. RGB Blur X clone 1. Then click on the tick. Ta-da! Here we go. Only the stars, nothing else. So we can minimize that, and we don't need that, so we can close that. Now I like to boost the saturation of my stars a little bit. So it's just my personal preference. So to do that, I'm going to go to Color Saturation. Click on the little circle down here for a preview, should you want that. And then there's a little button there. It's quite hard to see, but I'm going to click that and I'm going to drag it up. And that's going to globally boost the saturation of those stars. Click on the square to make that happen. Close that and the preview, and here we go. We have some nice punchy stars that should be reasonably accurate colours, but a bit punchier, just for my personal taste there. Right, we're going to minimise that and put that out of the way because we'll need that again near the end. Right, let's go back to these two. Let's make clones of these. So the last thing we did was SPCC. Clone in case we mess anything up. And here. SPCC. Clone in case we mess anything up. Now we need to do a little bit of work on these to get them ready for combining. So the first thing is we want to remove the stars from both of these, because we don't care about the stars, they're not accurate colours or anything. We're going to be using the stars that we removed separately. So to make starless images, again, I like StarNet 2. We haven't stretched these, so there's still linear data. Let's run it on the E2 here, and then we'll run it on the Alt. Alright, looking good. Quite noisy, the E2 in particular. So let's run a little bit of noise exterminator, shall we? I'm going to put this up to maybe 0.6 and run that on the Alt, and then afterwards we'll run it on the E2. Right, that should help smooth those out a little bit. Now let's work some magic, again thanks to SETI Astro. What we want is perfect palette picker, and we're going to combine these images. So the HA03, that's our ultimate data, which is called Alt SPCC. So find that, Alt SPCC, and the S203 is E2 SPCC. Still linear. I find that you get a slightly better result if you do this while it's still linear. So let's click Create Palettes, and this will automatically populate these boxes with some different palettes that we can choose from. There we go, looking good. Let's make this window a bit bigger. And then we can choose whichever ones we want. We just need to click on them and they will appear. I quite like these three actually. Yeah, let's have a look at what those are like. So we've got the 4-ax palette here, realistic 1 and realistic 2. Now there's no, strictly speaking, a right or a wrong answer for which colour palettes you want. You can choose whichever ones you look nicest. I'm going to take 4-ax out of the running. I don't think that looks quite as nice to my eye. These two, quite similar. I like them both, but I have a slight preference for realistic 1, and I'll tell you why. It's just because I think that there's a bit more definition between the two different colours here. The magentas and the oranges, they mix in a bit more, so I think this area stands out a bit more in realistic 1. And generally speaking, if you can have 3 colours that do stand out, I think that's quite a good approach to take. So I'm going to close that one, and we have final realistic 1. Let's close that, and then make a clone of that in case we mess up and need to go back. Right, next we can play about a bit with this image, and there's so many different things we can do. I'll just run you through some of the things that I like to do. So I'm a fan of Unsharp Mask, which is just a sharpening tool. So I'm going to open that up, click on the little circle here for a real-time preview, and the default is way too high. But that's okay, because we can bring that amount down. We don't want to over sharpen though, so let's click on this little box here and create a box there to zoom in, and then we can really see the difference. So the default is just, well, I mean, the default is crazy high, but with nothing it looks quite soft. So I do have a slight tendency to over sharpen, but I like my images to be nice and sharp when possible. Click on this one to have a full view. And if we want to flick back and forth, we can click this circle in the top left. So I don't know how much you can see on the compressed YouTube video, but that does sharpen it up a bit. Oops, sorry, that one doesn't work. You need to do the triangle onto the source image there. Another one I quite like is Script Utilities Dark Structure Enhance. I find that the default as 0.4 is generally a bit too much. Let's just put that down to 0.25, and that will make all these darker areas really stand out. That's looking good. Do you know what? I'm tempted to run Noise Exterminator again. Maybe just on 0.4 this time. Okay, we haven't even done a curves adjustment, have we? It's pretty basic thing. So curves, bring up a real-time preview, click the tick and you can see a histogram, and we'll just apply a bit of a, just a little bit of a curve to make it stand out, boost the contrast. Oops. Before and after. Before, after. Definitely more definition in the after. So to apply that, I'm going to click on the square there. Quite liking this. Right, so many other things we could do, but the main one other thing would be if you wanted to play about with the colours. I think they're alright as they are here actually, but just for your reference, if you wanted to play about with the colours, the best thing to do is called selective colour correction. I'm a big fan of this. You can choose any different colour that you like. For example, let's take blue, and you can play about and see how it would look when it's changed. But I might just leave it as the defaults for now. Or should I change it a bit? Oh, I don't know. I think for the purposes of this video and to keep it brief, I won't play about with these much more. But if you want to change your colours, this is a really good function to use. I'll give it all a little bit of a boost though, just a global saturation boost, I think. Just a little bit. Then, should we bring the stars back in? I think we're almost done. This video is getting to be a little bit long, isn't it? So to bring the stars back in, I'm going to go to Script, Utilities, and Screen Stars. And this time we're not removing stars, we are replacing the stars. So our starless view is called Final Realistic One, which is there. And our stars view is called Stars. It's that one up there. Create new image. Great, we see a preview there. Let's click on the tick. And there we go. It's an image that we can do a little bit more with if you wanted to, but we've topped 22 minutes, so that's enough for now. Hopefully that gives you the idea. Oh, one thing I always forget, I integer resampled. I downsized at the beginning, didn't I? So I should upsample at the end just to get that resolution back. There we have a nice high resolution image of the Lion Nebula taken using an OIII camera from a OIII City Centre using those different filters. I hope that was useful. Good luck if you try anything similar yourself. Thank you very much.